again, though. Cool. So,
That sounds
welcome.
like a James Bond line.
Yeah, exactly. Welcome, everyone. We're super excited to have you guys, and YouTube viewers as well. Hopefully, you now can see us, and to our fantastic two individuals who are able to make it into the live hangout. We're really happy you guys can be here. We know everyone's super busy with finals and whatnot, but this is an excellent opportunity for you as reps to be able to speak to your representative of the brand of Bobbles. So to give you guys an idea of who we're speaking with, I'll let her introduce herself shortly, but Danielle Passingham is here. She is the associate brand manager at Bobble, and in terms of what Danielle does on a day to day, I'm going to let her sort of just like jump in and give an overview of uh, her role as well as how she sort of got to Bobble. So just to give it away, Danielle, go ahead.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'll probably start with how I ended up where I'm at because I think that's probably most relevant for folks who are in school and like trying to figure out how you carve out your career path. So I'm obviously a little bit older than all of you. I graduated in 2003 from Wake Forest in North Carolina with a degree in business. Which was a great major for me because it was pretty broad and I didn't necessarily, I knew I was interested in marketing, but I wasn't 100% sure where I would end up. And like most seniors, I just wanted to make sure I had a job when I graduated. So I came back to Raleigh and started the first, I guess, gosh, probably the first 7 years of my career working in ad agencies. So I started on the agency side. I'm now on the what agency people call the client side. But I started working in ad agencies, which for me was really fun and exciting and definitely crazy because you have lots of different clients, but it's a great place to just kind of immerse yourself in the world of marketing and all of the different channels and needs that brands have. So you get a pretty wide range of experience, and you also get to work really closely with the people who are creating. Well, you may even be one of those agency side. I'm now on the. Why am I here? Oh, I'm hearing echoes. So, anyways, you get to work really closely with the creative team that's developing the ads and all of just like the really fun stuff I think about marketing. So I really enjoyed that part of my career. And actually, the folks at Mr. Youth are kind of familiar with what it's like to work at an agency because they're technically one. And so, it's just super fast-paced, but you really can jump in and learn a lot in a very short period of time about marketing. So I stayed in North Carolina, and I had interest for quite a while in working for a sustainable brand for my own personal reasons because I don't know, there's something to be said for working on a brand that you really admire and love. And for me, one of the first brands that I was really interested in was Burt's Bees. Are you guys familiar with Burt's Bees?
The chapstick?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they have like tons of natural personal care products. So they have like 160 products. Everyone knows them for the lip balm, which I probably have some here. Got my lip balm. So they are in Durham, and they're actually a hundreds of $1 million company, so they're pretty large. But it's super competitive to work there because they are one of maybe two, including seventh generation now, of consumer products type companies in North Carolina. There aren't a lot around here, so a lot of times when I meet college students, I tell them about how I got into Burt's Bees because it's pretty unconventional, but I think for me personally, it just kind of is a good example of thinking outside the box and being really persistent, but doing things that are going to set you apart from the millions of other resumes that are coming through because there's so many. So as I mentioned, I went to Wake Forest, and I reached out to somebody. I think it's always a good idea to leverage your network, whether there are people that graduated from your college that you may have not met, but you'd be surprised at how willing those alumni are to help you. So I initially reached out to, ironically, my boss at Bobble now. He was at Burt's Bees with me before. I sent him an email, and I saw a job, and I just said, hey, I'm interested, and I just kind of started to create that conversation with him about my interest in Burt's Bees and why I wanted to work there, but it didn't stop there because that wouldn't have been enough. I actually would go and volunteer with Burt's Bees for free at events I worked like 4 or 5 Earth Day events. I helped them shoot videos. I did all these things like just with my own time because I wanted to show them that I was really interested. I also, when I had my first interview, I sent these jars of honey and I put this like handwritten story attached to it about why I wanted to work there, and I sent it to like 4 people. And so I just really went, in my opinion, kind of went out of my way to make it known that I was passionate about working for a natural brand. I had skills to offer and I was willing to work hard. And literally one day I got a Facebook message from the director of marketing there who I'd become friends with, and she said, "Hey, we're ready for you." So after 3 years of work to get in there, I finally got hired. And I was there for 3 years working with my boss now at Seventh Generation, and it was an awesome experience. I loved the brand. It was, I mean, what I did at Burt's Bees is pretty similar to what I do at Seventh Gen, and I'll kind of explain that in a bit. But so yeah, at Burt's Bees 3 years, and then Brian, who you guys have periodically heard about. Again, it was all through network. He called me up one day and said, "Hey, do you want to come work for 7Gen in Bobble?" And I said yes, and now I've been there 5 months. But I'm going to stop there and take any questions about the path to Bobble because I feel like I've been talking for a while.
I've
Do you
actually
guys have
got a
any?
quick thing. Sorry, just to jump in.
Yeah.
You guys like jump in because of what you said brought to mind one of the questions I always ask. Because I actually didn't know about that, like working with Brian at
Yeah.
or so. A, like, not to put you on the spot, but do you consider Brian to be a mentor? And B, like, can you speak to just generally what you think about mentorship in defining your career path and figuring out what you want to do and where you want to go with it?
hmm Brian
What is that for?
is, yeah, no, Brian is most definitely a mentor. I think, and it's kind of hard until you get into a job to know if you're going to have access to someone like that. But when I was at Burt's, I didn't report to him, but we worked really closely together for a while. He was a brand manager on, gosh, almost every category he's worked on at Burt's Bees, but at the time when I was working with him, it was primarily face care. So he and we just had a really good working style together. I had always admired his management style. I think the ideal manager is one that doesn't micromanage you, lets you have the limelight and kind of puts you up on a pedestal when you do something so that other folks see, and isn't always trying to take credit for your work, because that does happen sometimes, unfortunately. Um, and Brian kind of exudes both of those qualities better than anyone that I have had the pleasure of working with. So when he called me about Bobble, I knew if I were going to be reporting directly to him that it would be a really good opportunity, because he also just takes the time, like you were talking about with the mentoring, he takes the time to make sure I'm learning, and he identifies development opportunities. If there's a project he feels like, is a little bit of a stretch for me, he will push me into it and not make me, but kind of say, like, this is yours. You take it and come back to me if you need help. But he sort of like, it's almost like pushing me out of the nest a little, like, "Danielle, let's take your career to the next level. Like, what do you need to do to make that happen, and how can I help?" And I mean, I hope that all of you have the opportunity to have a mentor like that. But I think it's good to, when you get into a job, whether or not it's your boss, try to identify someone that is going to take the time to help you learn, because it's really important to have that. And also to have someone who will be your advocate within the organization and will help lift you up to help you get those opportunities that you might not otherwise get.
Cool. Perfect answer. That's exactly
I'm going to play that back to Brian so you can hear how much I like. He's awesome. He's great.
yeah.
So at Bobble, so again, yeah, Brian, this fall, this was all really new because 7Gen had just acquired Bobble and they were figuring things out, and they opened up an office in Raleigh and brought over, our entire office worked at Burt's Bees before, so it is very incestuous in this area. So brand manager, when I was at Burt's Bees, I worked more on stuff on kind of your area, like really marketing communications. I think one of the biggest differences between brand marketing and marketing communications is the product development aspect. That's really new to me, like trying to figure out how we make a better bobble. Like, do we change the material? Do we change the filter? Like, we work on all that's probably more than half of my responsibility is trying to figure out how do we optimize it. Like, you will come and tell us like, hey, the filter is cracked, or we don't like this about it, and so we actually take that feedback and try to make something better. So the product stuff is really fun and interesting, but it's also hard for me because I've never done that before. So that's been a good learning process. So that's basically, I mean, that's probably like half of my time now. And because Bobble is so small and there's there's really only like, I guess technically 5 or 7 people working on it in different capacities. The other half of my time is really the advertising. So whether it's, like today, I was like writing back to people on our Facebook page and creating videos. We have obviously you guys we work with. So we have that program. We do lots of different outreach to editors through our PR agency up in Boston, trying to get coverage for Bobble. So all the different sort of things that things that sit in the PR and advertising realm is kind of the other half of my job. But it's definitely never boring.
Cool.
Do you guys have any, Stefan, you kind of explained your career interests, but does anyone else want to talk about, is anyone else looking at marketing or interested in that area?
I'm actually a finance and management major, so completely kind of like the opposite side of the business. But I guess I do have a couple questions in regards to, I know you're working on like the product, like innovation and stuff. What do you see are like the trends for the next couple of years? I guess like in like more sustainability or just like product development or anything in general?
Well, so 7 Gen for sure obviously feels strongly about the market for sustainable products. And actually, so right now our office, we are housed in this innovation hub in Raleigh. So we're the biggest company. The rest of all these other companies, and there's like 70 of them, are between 1 and 3 people startups. And we're doing a talk on Friday about have you guys heard of triple bottom line, that notion? Has anyone heard of that? No. So a lot of companies that, or maybe corporate social responsibility, maybe you've heard of that, but basically triple bottom line is the notion of really there's 3 things driving your bottom line. There's profit, there's people, and there's planet. And I think what a lot of companies, even big ones, are finding out, like Procter & Gamble, is that you can actually be socially responsible and make good choices that have good environmental implications and still be profitable. Because at the end of the day, companies have to make money. Like, they have to pay their employees, they want to grow. Like, that is clearly important. Any company that would say they don't care about making money, that they would be lying, because that is a very big part of being successful in business. But the bottom line is also dependent on your environmental impact. And like, for example, with Bobble, one thing that 7Gen has been, our bonus at Bobble, or at 7Gen and Bobble, is actually tied to partially the company's sustainability. So with Bobble, part of our responsibility so that everyone gets their bonus at the end of the year is to make sure that we're making good choices. We're looking at we already did it. We actually just pulled almost 80%. All of our bottles now are made in the U.S. We took it all out of China. Not that anything's wrong with China, but like, instead of paying for things to be shipped across the world here, we have found a way now to make the products here. I hear something. It sounds like a crying baby.
My bad. College life.
Oh, it's probably not a baby. It's probably an adult screaming.
Yeah. My bad.
No, you're fine. I have been there before. I did go to college. I'm not that old. But to answer your question, I feel like there is a huge trend towards sustainability and sustainable business, and honestly, consumers are kind of demanding it now. Like they want to know, like, I mean, granted, well, not every consumer, but a lot of consumers are actually concerned about what companies are doing. Are they being good stewards of the citizens in their communities? You know, are they dumping toxic waste into lakes? Like people don't want to buy from companies like that. People are just doing more research now. And from a financial standpoint, like I work really closely with our finance person. We can be profitable. Like we can have good margins on our product even if we move production to the U.S. Even if we, find a material that may be slightly more expensive, but actually saves us money in the long run because it's more sustainable. I mean, we can recycle it or things along those lines. Burt's Bees did the same thing. So I've now worked in 2 pretty sizable companies that operate that way. So I feel pretty strongly that that is going to be a trend. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Yeah, because like I'm interested in like the finance part of it, like a company, and also like management aspect. I guess like you said you did work a little bit with the financials and stuff. Do you recommend? I guess when you were in Burt's Bees too, do you have any like connections, or like were you like I guess too as Bobble, are you in just like a strictly just like the marketing department, or do you kind of commingle with like all the other departments of the org?
So, no, I definitely commingle. And more so actually at Burt's Bees because I'm like a math nerd kind of, so I think that might have been why, but I almost became a CPA in undergrad, so like I love numbers, and I managed the entire marketing budget at Burt's Bees, which was not small, and so that would touch all the different products. I think the difference at Bobble, which I'm learning, is on the product side, like figuring out cost of goods and how margins are impacted by decisions we make. I didn't do as much of that at Burt's Bees. I did more of like reconciling the marketing budget, looking at forecasts. At Bobble, I think I do even more on the finance side than I did at Burt's Bees. So there's definitely, if you are a brand manager, you are interacting with finance, research and development. I mean, you are responsible for the success or failure of a product. So you have to look at every aspect, whether it's the manufacturing in the warehouse and the logistics associated with shipping products from distribution center to, the impact of a coupon on your margin. So yeah, you're definitely like commingling, and that makes it fun. Any other questions? Michael, we can't see your video, but if you have a question, you can shout it out.
I think like Stefan's trying to talk, but I can't tell.
He's on mute.
Oh, Stefan, if you want to unmute, I don't know if you can.
Oh wait, he sent a chat. Hold on.
Michael
he's listening. Oh wait, it's Michael Hatcher. He's coming to see me on Thursday.
Oh, cool. Stefan, are you still muted? I think he's still muted.
He didn't want us to hear the screaming.
Yeah, still muted. If you want to type, if you want to type. Wait. I can't tell. That might be. Oh, that's Danielle.
I was just IMing him back, so.
So I have a quick question for you. This is more just general as a person who, as a professional, I wanted to know. This is usually the question I like exit with, but I'd love to know if there's anything that you're looking at right now or that you're learning from. So whether that's like a book or a blog or an app or a piece of news lately that's really attracted you, and what that is, and what you would recommend to students to be reading or looking at.
No, I think that's so my recreational reading is not so recreational at the moment because it's really driven by my grad school coursework, but which has been like amazingly applicable to work. And I'm actually writing my final paper. I have to tell this story because it's kind of funny, but this class I'm taking is, it's like a combination of a leadership class and economics. So we read a lot of like kind of dated, but like fundamental management books. And so I wrote a paper on, there was a book by a Harvard Business School professor. I wrote a paper on it. It was all about how when a company like 7th Gen acquires Bobble, like how do you properly assimilate the acquisition so that people don't resist the change? Because if you think about like the 7th Gen portfolio, which is mostly like home and baby care and personal care, Bobble is really different, both in personality and like the type of product. So, you know, people in Vermont, while they're excited, like a lot of them, it's just human nature, I think, to be like, I don't know how to work on this. This is just so foreign. So I wrote a paper about it, and I sent it to our CEO and like a couple other people, and I was like, hey, if you're really bored, you should read this. And he sent it to the entire board and the whole executive leadership team, and it was like a little controversial, and I was mortified because, I mean, I wanted to share it with him, but I didn't know, so I ended up like ruffling feathers because of that paper, not intentionally, but anyways. So I think a lot of my reading is more driven by school, but in terms of like, you know, trade-wise, I think I often, because of my agency background, I'll look at, you know, Advertising Age, Ad Week, Media Post is a big one. I feel like you, honestly, the Mr. You folks probably know more of like, in terms of social media and some of the more popular ones. I get a lot, like my contacts on LinkedIn will post stuff, so I'll read from them. I actually just saw something really cool that Burt's Bees was doing today, which I thought was interesting. They have created an application, which I don't completely know how it works, but basically it creates calendar invites for you that remind you you're awesome. So like on, you know, 9 a.m. on a Tuesday, and it shows the time is free, so you're not actually booked, but it will be on your calendar because, you know, people are so, well, at least working folks, I don't know if students are, but you're so driven by that Outlook calendar. So if you just like randomly go in there and you see this thing like, you're amazing and you shouldn't forget it, like it's kind of like these positive meetings randomly scattered throughout your calendar. And I thought that was a really cool idea. That's kind of very appropriate for Burt's Bees.
That has such cultural capital right now. I don't know if the rest of you guys, not to go on a tangent, but I don't know if the rest of you guys up here have noticed lately, but there's been sort of this movement more often in like popular culture, right, recently towards like just talking about happiness. Like happiness in music, like with Pharrell and his song and MasterCard taking it on, and just happiness as generally around so many different concepts if you think about it. So I love that. I think that's so cool.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm curious, like Brian and I were talking about, we were curious how many people would actually opt into it, but if they made it easy, you know, why not?
Yeah, totally.
But, and yeah, so I think I get a lot from my network, which is helpful for me just with time, because I would love, like, I love reading about new stuff and keeping tabs on trends. But, you know, my LinkedIn network helps me a lot with the news feed, and even like Facebook and Twitter, like I follow a lot of people that are thought leaders in marketing that, you know, give helpful information. And I try to read, if I see something interesting and I have time, I try to click on and read it. So
that's really cool. Thank you.
Hopefully that's helpful.
That's super helpful. And sorry guys, just quickly as a note of crazy agency life, which Danielle can speak to, I actually quickly jumped out because of a work emergency, but Natalie is still here, and she's going to take you on, and she actually has a question from YouTube. So peace and love to you all, and thank you guys for joining, and I think she's just going to keep talking. So
bye.
Bye.
Hi, guys. I know we've got about 8 viewers on YouTube, and Julian has just posted a question using She's asking, which social media or marketing tool have you noticed to be the most efficient or shows promise of becoming fundamental?
For a brand?
I assume in a brand or in the industry, yeah.
I feel like college students, and especially younger folks, are moving off of Facebook. I still think Facebook is really fundamental for brands and will be for quite a while, only because of the reach and the targeting ability within Facebook, because other platforms like Twitter, while they can be great too, you don't have the level of personal data. Like on Facebook, I can put an ad out for Bobble and target based on like people who, like yoga. You can't get to that level of detail on a lot of these other platforms. So I think until some of the other platforms become more sophisticated, Facebook's still going to be crucial. The annoying thing about Facebook is increasingly, so you guys probably know about this, but your organic reach. So like if I post on Bobble's Facebook, because of the algorithm, a lot of people don't see it. So Facebook is basically now in a position to force brands to pay to reach their own fans, which is, and it gets worse as you get bigger. So Bobble's, we're still relatively small. We have like 215,000 or something fans. But a brand like Burt's Bees or 7gen that has over 2 million, they probably organically reach only like 1 or 2% of their fans. So Facebook kind of puts you in a bind, and you have to spend money to talk to your own fans. So it's like they lure you in because it's this great platform that is theoretically free, but then when you actually want to do something, you got to start paying. I think from an analytics standpoint, my experience, which I have not done much at Bobble, but I did a lot at Burt's Bees with Twitter, I felt like the analytics coming back from Twitter and the ROI on our campaigns was a lot clearer. Facebook, it just tends to be, and I'm not saying they're deceptive by any means, but like you look at the campaign data and it just doesn't always really add up. It's hard to, I feel like Facebook is maybe a bit of a, like a locked safe. Like you can't quite always, or maybe a black box, that's what I was thinking of. You can't quite always understand how they work, and they want to keep it that way because that's kind of what allows them to be so powerful. Twitter was very transparent. We were able to see like every detail of our campaign. Instagram and Pinterest I ran a Pinterest promotion at Burt's Bees right before I left that was really successful. We basically, we did a contest where we said we would bring someone's Pinterest board to life. So we did that. This girl pinned this like Mexico trip, and we took her to Mexico, and we put her up in a house. So like I think some of the more visual platforms, depending on the type of brand, can be really really fun to work with and allow you to do some cool things. So certainly Instagram and Pinterest are growing in terms of importance for brands, but fundamentally I think Facebook is still where it's at for now.
Awesome. And she also asked if you have any tips on marketing towards an older generation, and has that been a goal that Bobble has pursued at all yet?
Say that, you're a little bit muffled. Do you say, is Bobble marketing to older folks? Is that basically the question?
And if you have any tips on marketing to an older generation, yes.
So I have not, well, I guess technically I have worked on some brands in my past life that market to older folks, but Burt's Bees and 7gen, well, 7gen on the Vermont side of things probably, but Bobble has not, we have not focused on older folks. I mean, sure, if they like Bobble, that's great, but you guys will find, unless you work for like Pepsi or a brand that has millions and millions of dollars, it is not efficient to try to reach everyone. So most companies go through an exercise called segmentation with their audience. And basically the notion of segmentation is to try to break it down into tangible pieces so that you can say, like, this more narrow target is who I'm going to go after, and this is how I can make my dollars work harder in that area. For Bobble, I feel like it's just more appealing to folks your age because of the design, and younger people tend to care more about the environment. Older people are a little more set in their ways. Not that, I mean, I think they're certainly aware of some of the issues we're facing, but if you look at the movement towards sustainability, it is very much in the younger, like college campuses are banning bottled water. Like you don't see that very often in other places. So I think brands that, even Burt's Bees, who are natural and more sustainable, will want to have those people on board versus an older generation. I don't know if that person I have some experience working with older folks, but I don't know if they want me to go into that.
I I think that's great.
It's funny, Facebook now, as you guys are probably aware, is actually a good way to reach older people because everyone's grandma and their mom is on Facebook now. And it's kind of disturbing, to be honest, that my mother-in-law is on Facebook, friends with me, but it is, and I have to deal with it. I think that's why a lot of people have gotten off Facebook.
Yeah, my grandfather.
You say?
Fernando.
A little bit.
Fernando,
Yeah.
I'm Bill Henry from the Public Safety Department. I want to talk to you. I want to talk to you alone. So, if you want, I can drive you down to our office, or if you want to make your own way down and come down, whatever you want.
I think someone's
You and I.
getting.
You what?
Yeah. I'm not sure what's on that. But yeah, I'd definitely say Facebook is a way to communicate with others, like, just easily. That's why I think it's a great, like, marketing tool. And you're able to reach with people that you, like, that are outside your, like, local, like, community.
Yeah, for some reason,
What is going on?
Not sure. Everybody else seems to be muted, so I'm not sure where this is.
I have no clue.
That sounded scary.
Yeah,
Sounded like somebody was getting arrested.
yeah, exactly.
Oh my god.
Huh, okay. Sorry about that. If you want to continue, it seems to have cleared up by now. Yes. Michael just wrote that it sounds like someone's getting busted.
I saw it. I think someone just did. Hopefully it wasn't because they were talking to us.
I'm sure it wouldn't be. I actually have another question.
Yeah.
From Ryan Graham. She came in a little bit late, she says, so she didn't want to join into the little hangout and disrupt anybody. But she has a question for you, Danielle. She says she's a marketing major, and through some of her internships, she's found that she's very interested in web marketing.
Mhm.
With that, she's been doing a lot of search engine optimization research, and she's wondering what Bobble does in terms of SEO.
Yeah, I'm happy to touch on that. So 7 Gen has a relatively big digital team. It's bigger than any brand. Like, I feel like they have more people than brands I've worked on before. Sometimes I wonder what all of them are doing. I'm like, there's so many of you. So they really manage waterbobble.com and 7Gen's website, and they have. So all of our optimization is handled in-house. A lot of companies will outsource that and have agencies work on it. So our website is currently optimized, keyword optimized. We are also doing quite a bit in paid search, driving more e-commerce than brand awareness, because we have various offers on our site. So if somebody's searching for filtered water bottle, we want to make sure we're the first thing that shows up. The interesting thing is Bobble wasn't doing any of that before it was acquired, and search isn't cheap, but it is one of the less expensive things you can do. So once we turned that on, the site traffic, it was just crazy how quickly it spiked. So now, we're working on our conversion rate. That's really the focus. Is we are getting people to the site, but we need to make sure we're keeping them interested and converting them to purchase on the website, which is still not quite, all the way there, but we're working on it.
Awesome. And the reason that Julia asked about marketing to adults is because she just has parents and professors ask about Bobble all the time, and she just found it a little hard to explain how awesome Bobble is to them and relate it to them specifically. So that's where that
Got it.
is from. Yeah, which is interesting.
Yeah.
It's definitely a younger product, I think, initially, but
Does she feel like she doesn't have an easy way to explain it? Like, is that something we need to work on, giving like the one sentence about what is Bobble so people can tell older folks? I don't know. Maybe that's something we need to create.
definitely let's see if she's fun.
I always just say, like, bobble's a bottle that filters as you drink.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the one line that explains what it does. At the end of the day, that's what it does.
Hoping that maybe she'll respond shortly. I think two things might be a bit lagging. But I think some of the, I think adults, or we are all adults, some of the older generation may find it a little harder to relate to some of the maybe images that we're sharing socially, but on the whole, I think they should understand pretty easily what it is, what it does, what the benefits are, and if anybody needs help showcasing that to anybody, we're all more than happy to help do that for you.
Yeah.
We all love Bobble.
Any other questions?
You guys have any other questions?
Any life advice questions? I'm kidding.
Yeah. Oh, not life advice, but I mean, just like before, like graduating, like college and stuff. Is there wish you would have done earlier in your career, or even during like your undergrad?
What was the first part of your question? You were breaking up a little.
Kelly?
Right. I think she's frozen.
I think her question was if there was anything that you think would have been important to have done earlier on in your career or in your undergrad to prepare yourself for where you
Yeah. Wait, what happened?
I'm not sure.
Can you guys?
I think my just like went in and out, but I'm back on now.
Okay. So I would say, well, first of all, to be 100% honest, I wish something like Mr. Youth existed when I was in college, because I mean, I think doing stuff like what you guys are doing on campus is pretty cool. Like, I mean, it is a resume builder. I didn't have access to anything like that. I mean, Facebook didn't even exist when I was in college, and that makes me seem really old, but it's true. You know, I did have some marketing related internships that I think helped my resume, but ultimately, as I mentioned before, what worked for me was finding someone who was willing to take a chance on me and then building from that relationship. I don't know what's going on. Now I see Stefan in the middle of the screen. So yeah, I mean, I think working with Mr. Youth and what you guys are doing with these campaigns is great. Like you can describe that almost like a job on your resume, and then networking and anyone you meet, you know, getting their information, trying to stay in touch and using maybe using isn't the right word, but leveraging those connections when you start looking for jobs, especially alumni, because there's something like, I think we just feel like we want to help. We know how it feels to be graduating from a certain university. You know, like Wake Forest folks, I have always found them to be helpful, and it doesn't have to be alumni. It could be anyone that you encounter that, you know, is out in the working world and is willing to kind of help connect you with someone. So I think networking and getting your name out there I could not put more value on that long term.
I completely agree with that. I think the majority of opportunities that I've seen coming from a recently graduated, you know, entry level position.
Yeah. The other thing I would say, and has served me well in my career, is never burning bridges. You know, I've had a lot of jobs, like ad agencies, you jump around a lot, but I've always made sure when I've left a company to leave it with good relationships, so that when people, you know, like for example with Brian, I mean, I wouldn't be at 7Gen if I didn't have a good relationship with him and he didn't say, hey, I want to work with you again, I'm going to bring you over to this job. So I think that having those relationships just opens up doors later on, and and that's served me really well.
Yeah, that's great. I completely agree. From everything that I've seen so far in the industry, I think building relationships with people in the working world and in your industry is a
Hmm.
really great and useful tool to have moving forward and ongoing endlessly, throughout your career, whether you choose to stay somewhere or move on to the next step. I think networking is a very big tool.
I think the other interesting thing I've discovered in the last few years is once you get into a certain type of industry, it's really small. Like, if you start working in natural products, I think now at this point, and I mean, keep in mind, I've really only been in natural products for like 4 years. I feel like I know people at like every single natural company, Kashi, Ben and Jerry's, Burt's Bees, 7th Gen now, Method, like Annie's. It's just crazy because people disperse and go to different jobs, and so again, like having those good relationships just will help you out so much later on.
Yeah.
And doing things like you're doing now with Mr. Youth and getting some marketing and some business experience, whether you're interested in finance, like it's still helpful. Finance folks have to have people skills and they have to be able to present and they have to, know how to work with other folks on a cross-functional team. So even though you're marketing, like I still think it's completely relevant.
Yeah. Completely agreed. I've gotten a couple messages of reps who are telling us that they have to sign off because it's getting close to 8 o'clock now.
I can't hear you.
Yeah, I can't.
Still?
What? You're just more muffled. Thomas was clearer. I don't know why.
I'm not sure why either. I'm sitting right over.
Now I can hear you.
Oh man, okay. I've just gotten a few messages from reps who are saying that it's nearing 8 o'clock and they're going to be signing off.
Yeah, I probably need to go write this paper.
It might be a good idea to bring this to a close, but just wanted to ask if anybody had any final questions for Danielle before she signs off and gets back to her papers. Otherwise, we've got 9 shy viewers on.
Well, tell them I said thank you for tuning in, and thanks to everyone. I think Kelly, you're the only one still here, but thanks for hanging out with me for an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so
And
much.
good luck.
No, it was great. Exactly.
And
Oh, thank you.
Who's
Definitely want to connect with you.
You're breaking up. I think wait, no, she's back.
all right.
My network thing. Yeah. Okay.
That's all right. College wireless, we all know. Anyway, a big thank you to Danielle, of course, for joining and embarking any and all wisdom that she's had to share with us.
No problem.
Everybody's always welcome to shoot any emails or questions over to us moving forward. Anything you might be wondering about or need help with, advice, we're all willing to be here and help you guys move forward throughout school and building your future career paths. So I'm sure we all would.
For sure. Awesome.
Thank you.
All right, guys.
Good night.
Thank you.
Have a good night.